Have you ever had a financial question that you were just too embarrassed to ask? If the answer is yes, you are not alone. Basic financial education is just something that we're not taught. You either had to have a parent who spent time teaching you about money, or you're doing what we're all doing, took an alternative path to get there. Maybe you are reading books, you found a mentor, you're watching YouTube. And so what we're going to cover today is the 5 most common asked financial questions that people are too embarrassed to ask. And if you don't know these, you will leave here smarter. And if you do know them, this is what people are asking. So get out there, share the wisdom, and let's get into the video. The most asked financial question is it okay if I only make the minimum payment on my credit card? Now, the answer is if you only make the minimum payment, it will not affect your credit score, but that doesn't mean it's okay. This is actually a very bad thing to do. And this is why. By only making the minimum payment, you're stretching out the amount of time it takes you to pay off your debt, which means you're paying more in interest. And this is a trap that really gets people in trouble because they start viewing what they can afford to buy based on monthly payments, not the actual price of the item. And this is when you hear about people getting in so much interest that they can't climb out of it. This is like the debtor becomes enslaved to the lender. So we don't ever want anyone to experience that. So the best thing to do is only buy something that you can afford to buy outright. And if you are using a credit card, pay that thing off in full every month, no matter what. Second most asked financial question is, how do I buy a home? Now, if you're gonna buy the home in cash, doesn't take much. Little paperwork, send over the money, good to go. I think what the real question is asking is, how do I go about getting a mortgage? I'll cover the broad strokes, and if this is something you want me to go more in depth on, like walk me through going and getting out a mortgage, leave it in the comments. We'll do a follow-up piece on this, but here's the broad strokes. First thing to establish is how much home you can afford or what monthly payments you're comfortable with. There's a general rule of thumb, and that's to spend no more than 35% of your gross income, so that's pre-tax. That's the limit is what they recommend. A lot of people will say spend less than that, but I think that's a good metric. Next, you'll have to figure out how much you want to put down. And this one, there's FHA or special loan programs that will allow you to put very little down. Most people will tell you the minimum's 10%, but you should actually gear towards 20%. We did a whole video on this, kind of going over the risk and potential returns by putting little down versus a lot. I'll put the link in the comments in case you want to go through in detail, but this is kind of the general process. You're going to go out and get pre-qualified from a mortgage lender to give you kind of an idea of what they think you're going to be approved for so that you can start looking. Then you'll go out and get pre-approved, which a seller is typically going to want to see after they accept an offer, and then you start the process. And here's some of the things you'll need to do. Pay stubs for the last 30 days, W-2s for the last 2 years, signed federal tax returns for the last 2 years, 2 of your most recent bank statements, documentation of any other sources of income, documentation of your source of down payment, proof of your identity, and your social security number. Now, that's just a list. If you want me to go more in depth, let me know and we'll do a full video on it. The third most asked financial question is, how do I make a budget? Now, this one's really important because when we don't tell money where to go, it goes where we want. And that's why at the end of the year, we look at our money and it's all gone. This is the easiest way, or maybe the most common way to do so. And it's the 50-30-20 rule. And that means 50% of your expenses are going to go towards things you have to pay. This is mortgage, rent, utilities, etc. 30% of your expenses is going to go towards wants, things we enjoy doing, maybe eating out, entertainment, vacation. And then 20% of that goes towards our savings or our investing. Or 20% goes towards the amount we need saved, maybe till we build up cash reserves, and then anything on top of that will go towards investing. This isn't the only way you do it. You can tweak it and go, 40% needs, 20% wants, the rest goes towards investing. The 50-30-20 rule is just a general outline. For my family, we use mint.com as the software for our budget. It's not perfect, but it's the best that we've seen out there so far. The fourth most common asked financial question is, can I start investing with little money? And the answer is absolutely. That's like one of the coolest things about the time we live in, is there's all these online brokerage apps like Robinhood or now Public that have made investing easy and inexpensive. There's also robo-advisors that will now help you manage your money for a very low cost. Now, there's people out there that will say it's not enough money to even move the needle. Just wait until you have a lot before you start investing. My experience was very different. When I started investing, which was not a lot of money, and I started seeing the interest that I was earning on that money, I got so excited. I just wanted more. It almost like created a monster in me because I just wanted more and more invested, and also helped me on the discipline side because I was willing to say no to certain expenses so that I could put money into this vehicle that I was watching grow. So my experience was invest as little as you can to get this thing started. Fifth and final, most commonly asked financial question is, what is the difference between short-term and long-term capital gains? And this one is really important to know. When you sell a capital asset like a stock, the capital gain is the difference between what you bought it for and what you sold it for, considering that it's a profit. If it's a profit, it's a capital gain. If you bought it at a certain price and sold it for less, then that's going to be a capital loss. Now, the difference between short-term and long-term is how long you held the asset. For a short-term capital gain, it's an asset that you held for a year or less would be deemed short-term. And then any asset that you held and then sold longer than a year would be long-term. The importance of knowing the difference is because they're taxed different. For short-term capital loss, it's taxed at your effective interest rate. So if your effective interest rate is 35%, then you're going to be taxed 35% on your short-term capital gains. But if you held it for over a year, long-term capital gains are taxed at either 0, 15, or 25% based on your taxable income or your filing status. So I'm curious now, how many of these questions did you know? Leave it in the comments. If you knew all 5, let me know, yeah, Mikey, this was easy. But I think it's good for us all to know. These are the questions that people are asking. So let's send this video out there. Let's answer these questions for people so that they're empowered and know more about finance so that we can build our base and win with money. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.